Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands-on SAP Dev episode 56 with me, DJ Q-Macro. It's a frosty, cold Friday morning. Sun's shining though. And yeah, it was a nice run this morning, a short one, but yeah, cold and dark and a little bit icy, which is how I like it. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the next hour with you. Thanks so much for joining. Let me just check here. Good morning, Christian. Good morning. Good morning, Mani Kandan. Welcome. And good morning, Freddie. Nice to see you on the bus yesterday by complete accident. That was very good. Yes, so we're live. Yeah, I've been scheduling some tweets and everything. Anyway, we're going to cover or continue with our workflow on Cloud Foundry discovery today, for the most part. There's a bit of an issue with the portal service backend on trial at the moment, but we'll dig into what that issue is. I'm talking to some folks. I'm just pointing over there, my work laptop on a support system, talking to some lovely folks there. They've been trying to fix it. But I think it's okay because, we can look at the error, we can sort of, stare at it for a little bit and have a play around with maybe, how we look at the error and see what's going on. But I think I've got in the style of, there's a program on British TV in the 70s. Well, I suppose maybe it's still going. I don't know. When I was a kid, I watched it, Blue Peter. And there was when they were making things, and they brought out something from the back shelf saying, "Here's one I made earlier." I do have a cloud platform trial account that I'm using to rewrite my workflow code jam content for Cloud Foundry. So I've got something that's already deployed and is not subject to this issue that we're encountering. So we may be able to continue with that. So we'll see. We'll see. It'll be a slight sort of seat of the pants job, flying by the seat of the pants or skin of the teeth, I can't remember. But we'll see. Good morning, Sasha. Good morning. Good morning. And good morning, Gregor Servos from Service to Southeast Upper Bavaria. Manuel, good morning. It's great to see you all here. What has been happening recently? Well, let me just, oh yes. I don't know how many of you are already in the modern world with a physical security key to use with two-factor authentication. This is I took possession of this. I bought one of these. It's a YubiKey 5 NFC or NFC 5. Did some research, had a lot of help from my friend and colleague, or ex-colleague and friend and ex-colleague. Yeah, that's better. Brenton O'Callaghan, Mr. O'Data, as I like to call him. And yeah, I've been securing my accounts even more with this security key, which is pretty cool. And also you can store things, store private keys on it as well. I've not looked into that. Good morning, Antonio. Good morning to Frankfurt. Good morning, Max. Servus, Max, just to force DJ to pronounce it. Yes, we'll say something and I might pronounce it. This chat here is very small. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. Let me just up the font a little bit. There we go. I can see that better now. So there we go. Let me just switch. I'll go to Lightstream, just switch to the main. Oh, is that better? So I'm not quite sure what I did there. I think the sound is back. Thanks, Freddie, for letting me know, and Gregor, and Christian, and Sasha, and Max. I'm guessing is the sound back? I think it is. Now we have DJ Panzer, like Marcel Moso. Is that how you do it? I'm not sure. Anyway, let me know on the. I think the sound should be back. Cool, thank you. It was my fault. I had deactivated the microphone when I was going live because people obviously can hear me sniffing and coughing and typing on the keyboard while we're doing the sort of standby part. So I thought I'd do something sensible and put the microphone off, but I forgot to put it on again in this other scene. Anyway, I didn't realize the microphone setting was scene specific. So mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, as they say in Rome. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Okay, so yes, something completely random, but I gave a talk yesterday internally at SAP to a lovely organization, like an architecture forum, on functional programming. And one of the things and some of the content of the talk we've done already on this live stream series a few back. I think it was episode 43. But I took some of the content for it from this talk I gave a while ago in 2017 at MadLab in Manchester, where I was looking at various languages, Elixir, Haskell, Clojure, and sort of discovering pattern matching and discovering what recursion or how recursion is implemented in different languages, functional programming. There's Elm as well. Elm is a beautiful language. And also seeing how we could do it in JavaScript as well. And I came across basically something like this and tried to tell the story of how we got from, or how we get from something like this that's on the screen right now to effectively the reduce function and subsequently the map function and filter and find and all those sorts of things through a little bit of a journey through Fold. Let me know if that would be interesting for us to cover on a live stream by exploring, then let me know. I mean, obviously we've done some functional programming before, but maybe not to this extreme. Morgan, Volker, Mahesh, good morning, good morning. So yeah, let me know whether that would be a thing. We'll get to we'll look at the beauty of, for example, where are we here? The beauty of where is it? Oh, QSort. Now that is a thing to behold. Stare at that for a few minutes, and you'll think, oh yeah, that's really cool. That's not from me, of course. This is a classic sort of example of pattern matching and recursion used to implement not a super efficient, but a beautiful quick sort. Anyway, look at that. That's just amazing. Yes, so we get to fold right in this case. But anyway, yeah, let me know if that would be a thing that you'd be interested in looking at. By the way, that's sort of connected to the coding challenge that we had. Was it last week we announced it, or this week? I can't remember. It was on Tom Young's blog post. Max, can you or anybody find the coding challenge blog post and stick it in the chat? We're going to do one in another couple of weeks' time. And it's going to be a sort of functional programming one. I mean, only you folks here on the channel know that. But yeah, we're going to do a sort of a functional programming related one. So there we go. You heard it here first. Right. What else? Oh, yes. We were chatting on Twitter yesterday, and Oliver Jägel tweeted something that I responded with a, wait, what? Which I think was quite appropriate. Thanks, Christian. That's good feedback. I think I'll definitely consider that. Which is serverless ABAP. Now, what a combination. It's never seen the light of a NetWeaver application server, but only his Raspberry Pi running OpenFAS. Now, so OpenFAS is an initiative, a project from the wonderful Alex Ellis UK on Twitter. I'm reading all sorts of things from him about OpenFAS and about serverless and about Raspberry Pi clusters. and about K3S, which is like a cut down version of Kubernetes, okay, 8S, -5. I don't know why -5 is significant, but anyway, there we go. So yeah, and then Hendrik said, get Oliver on the show. I'm assuming we're referring to this thing as a show. So yeah, let me know if it would be interesting to get Oliver on and get him to show us what this thing is all about, because it looks quite interesting. You know, he says it's super alpha mode at the moment. I was just looking on the repo on GitHub, but I think that's definitely interesting. OpenFaz is also available to run COBOL functions. Yes, Max. That's pretty awesome, right? That's pretty awesome. So I think you know, there's plenty. There's too much to cover on this show. It's a show. That's cool. I've got another thing in my little directory here from Marius, but we'll come to that shortly because I want to use that in something we're about to do. Okay. So okay, perfect. Thanks, Gregor, and yeah, I think +1 for Oliver from me too. Okay, perfect. Another glass of water, some water. Now, where did we leave off last week? At the end of last week, we were here, right? We just finished sort of exploring where we were with the sample application called Sample Workflow Tiles MTA Trial. Thank you, Christian. Thanks for posting or about to post that link. That's awesome. And yeah, we're going to do another one, like I was saying. We had a look at the Workflow Tiles FLP, which is basically this mechanism that requires, as we remember, there's the Workflow Tiles router. Let's just collapse that. There's the Workflow Tiles FLP, and it's about content deployment. And then Gregor also made a really good point about the common data model, which is this thing here. And this particular Workflow Tiles FLP module gets deployed, and its raison d'etre, as they say in French, or in Paris, not in Rome, is to push content into the portal. Okay, and that content is basically this described by the common data model. And the common data model, if we double click on that to open it, it opens in this, by default, in this Launchpad editor, which of course shows us the things that will be deployed, you know, the tile definitions, and you know what apps they're connected to and so on, etc. So the next stage is for us to try and build this and then deploy it. And it's in the deployment that we may come across some errors, which is okay, right? Christian, you're teasing me here, where you say here is the link to the community coding challenge. There's no link yet, or am I missing something? But anyway, that's okay. We got plenty of time. So what I propose we do, and I'm sort of, well, like always, I'm mostly making this up. What I propose we do is do it from the web IDE first, and then also do it from the command line, because terminal is a future, etc. A futurist terminal even. And in fact, I'm just going to do that and close that. There we go, so I can see things better. So I think also then we'll be able to look at this thing from Marius. I think we might have covered it before, but it's very useful. Anyway, right. So we've got this application, and I'm going to right click, and we did cover this, didn't we? We covered the deprecated build tool, which is the Java-based build tool, and we've covered, and Marius has got some blog posts on the new MTA build tool. So we'll run that right now, okay? So the task for build MTA is started. That's there, 8:14. There we go. And we'll have a quick look at the output of that just to see what's going on. Okay, so what's happened? Where is the start of it? There we go. Right. 8:14, MTA build started, etc., etc., etc. And if you remember, the script that's used is not web IDE. I think it was some other little bit of string here that was used. It was a different script that used the Java build. This is using the MBT build tool. So it's a script that invokes that. And this is the output that we see from that MBT build script, okay? All sorts of different things. And we end up with an archive generated in, by default, it puts it in a directory called MTA archives, and it'll create that directory if it doesn't exist. An MTAR file called after the name of the project, sample workflow tiles MTA trial. We understand what that name is. Giving it a 0.0.1, and that comes from the MTA.yaml. And then it's an archive, or a zip file, effectively, which is an archive, right? And it's an MTA archive, so they call it .mta. It reminds me of, who remembers, or who still uses, SAP CAR. SAP CAR is an archiving tool, basis tool. Bye, Freddie. Have a great day. But basically, there's a wrapper around tar, and so they call the archives CAR archives, but they're actually really tar archives. In the same way, I think that the VSIX, the Visual Studio Extension archive files, .vsix, they're actually just zip files, right? Okay. Anyway, I digress. So what we've got in there now, as a result, we've got a MTA archives directory and this thing here, which we'll now try and deploy. Okay. First of all, well, yeah, let's try and deploy it. Let's just do it, right? Let's deploy to SAP Cloud Platform. And this is what you would be doing normally. Now, nobody yet. I don't know whether Ronnie's on the call yet. Ronnie was super excited about something which I'll talk about in a minute. Cloud Foundry endpoint, organization dev. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just check. Yes, let's just check before I do anything else in the MTA YAML, because this is something I wanted us to sort of change, but we'll deploy it anyway, right? Just to see what happens. Yeah, this is the as standard, what you get basically when you create a new workflow project from this sample application. You get the MTA YAML, and you get these two modules, workflow tiles app router and workflow tiles FLP, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 resources upon which they both rely. One relies on only 3 of them. And this is the workflow instance, the instance of the workflow service. And it's supposed to be called, as in according to this, workflow tiles, right? And it's defined here as a managed service, so it will get created. If we have a look over here in my trial account, which I've, of course, expired on. I wish they would up that, but anyway, trial. We see in my dev space, oh, I'd already deployed it. Okay, well, that's fine. We can get rid of these things here. Service instances. Has that worked? Service instance. Anyway, let's just do that. I was messing around this morning to see if the error was still there. Right, okay, so we've already got this workflow instance. And remember, we created that manually, okay? And the portal resources, let's just get rid of this menu item here. We've got the portal resources workflow, we've got the UI workflow tiles, we've got the UAA workflow tiles, we've got the HTML5 repo as well. So everything's actually been deployed. I've just done this, half an hour ago. And I thought it had failed. Oh, look at that. We've got 0 days left. Expires in 0 days. That's a bit exciting. So I think we'll deploy this anyway. But before we do, let's just have a quick look. Let's go to the applications. This is quite exciting. Is this working? It might not be working because of the error that I'm sure I saw. Let's just find out. Yes, okay. It's not working because it did fail. Oops. Temporarily unavailable. Okay, that's fine. Which means we can sort of, thrash about with this stuff at will. So let me stop that application and let's delete it. Let's do it all manually first in the cockpit. Come on. And then delete this one as well. And that should also remove the binding of these two applications as referencing applications from these services here. So that one is still being deleted. Oh, it's gone now. That's been deleted. It's now gone. So we should have no referencing applications here. That's correct. So let's get it back to the state which we had it last week, at the end of last week's episode. I much prefer to use the command line, as you can probably tell. This is, I think this is very useful to have a UI, but the future is terminal after all. We can only do one at a time, really. SAP UI5 CDN always quite slow these days. Oh, I see. Yes, but I think it's more than just that. As we saw in the URL where we tried to go to the portal site, it was cp.portal, and then it redirected to a not found, didn't it? Let's get rid of that one. And let's get rid of that one and leave the one we created manually the week before last, the workflow, okay? And just let's see what happens when we deploy this, okay? So let's do this deploy, build, deploy. Ooh, what am I doing here? That one there, sorry, there, deploy to SAP Cloud Platform. There we go, that's the right target. So now we've got the deployment in progress. It should take a few minutes. The really strange thing I've noticed in the past week or so is that with the deployment that gets triggered from the Web IDE, the output is buffered. It never used to be buffered, but the output is buffered. So we're not going to see anything. It's 8:21:34 right now. We're not going to see anything until it's finished. We sort of, everything gets buffered and whammo, we get all the log records, which is a bit of an issue. So I've raised that with the teams as well. Oh, sorry, I'm about to raise that with the teams. But anyway, we'll see the logs when we do it manually in the command line. When we'll also have a look at what Marius had to say about MTA archive size. Okay. UCF, CF undeployed to get to the command line. Yes, exactly. Gregor, I'm deliberately sort of avoiding the command line right now. I suppose do it within the Web IDE first, and then we'll do it with the command line, because what I want to do, in fact, while we're waiting, let me export this whole project, and I'll flip to the command line, and we'll there we go. Export it. We'll flip to the command line. Where are we? PWD. There we go. Fine. If we move now, it's just been downloaded. Downloads sample to here, and let's have a quick look. Okay, fine. That's it. Yeah. So why don't we say make dir sample unzip quietly into the directory sample, that thing there. Okay, so now let's have a look. That was the wrong one. Into sample. We don't need the shay thing, do we? Delete. Yes. So there is our MCA YAML, and there's the workflow tiles app router and the workflow tiles FLP. Interestingly, did you notice, not that this is super exciting, but it didn't include the MTA archives directory in that export, and that's what makes sense, right? So what we'll do while we're waiting for that deployment to continue, because as you can see, it's still happening. Okay, we'll also build it here on the command line. Okay, so MBT. Actually, before we build it, we'll make that change. We're deploying it right now with the workflow tiles reference to the workflow instance, and we'll see what the result of that is in a second. So while we're waiting, we'll modify that. This is what I'm talking about here, right? So we've got the workflow tiles, workflow tiles name in the require statement for both the workflow tiles app router module and also the workflow tiles FLP module, and then there's the name at the bottom there. So if we just change that to workflow, but also instead of it being like a managed service, as in please create this type thing, we can specify that as an existing service. Okay, so that's what we want. Now let's just build that and see what happens. We should get the same messages here. But we'll also look at the the size of the archive. Okay. Yeah, npm warm deprecated request. This is I think this is causing an issue for many people. I mean, request. I'm assuming that the request package, npm package module, is being used by either the app router or the deployer. And I think when I was doing, was it a live? Did I do it in a live stream? I was using a request and request promise. I think yes, we used request promise when we were writing the JavaScript equivalent of getting that OAuth token, and then using that as a bearer token to authenticate with the API endpoint that we were playing around with. Business rules, I think it was. Was it business rules or was it workflow? I can't remember. So yeah, interesting. I need to look into that personally, but I guess the teams are also probably aware of the fact that request is now deprecated. Anyway. Okay, so where are we? So let's have a look at the size of the archive that's been created. It's 12.5 meg. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's not super huge. However, the vast majority of that archive, in fact, why don't we do this? Let's just have a look here. Let's go into the MTA archives directory, and is it a zip file sample? Yes, it is. Okay, so if we have a look at that, make dir temp unzip into temp the what's it called, sample mtar, and have a look at that. We'll see that most of the content of the data.zip in each of the module directories is the node module stuff. Okay, now that's interesting because, and it'll be the same for the workflow tiles FLP as well. Now that's interesting because we can use Marius's discovery to help us here. Do you think your MTA archives are just too big? That reminds me of that phrase, does my bum look big in this? I don't know, it's not something I say very often, but there we go. And Marius pointed us to a nice little build parameters section that you can specify in your module definitions to cause the build to ignore node modules. So the node modules won't be transported in the build, right? And then, sorry, it won't be included in the build, and therefore it won't be transported in the deploy to the Cloud Foundry. They'll be expanded in the Cloud Foundry once you've deployed it instead. So while we're waiting for that deploy to finish, it's still, I think, deploying. Yes, it's still deploying. We've now got, however, a number of things in our services. Let's just have a look at this as well. This is a little bit of a bitty thing. We've now got in our services, we've got the portal. I wish you could expand these columns, widen the columns and shorten other ones, or make narrow. Anyway, we've got our workflow service instance, but it's not being used, right? It's not being referenced by either of the two modules or the apps that we're deploying. Instead, what's happened is that it's caused the creation of a second workflow service instance, given it the name workflow tiles, which of course you can sort of understand now from the MTA YAML, and it's bound those two modules to it. Okay, so that's not really what we want. Okay, I mean it's fine, but it's a bit of a waste, right? We've already got this workflow instance and we want to use it. So the result of specifying in the MTA YAML file here that it's an existing service and it's now called workflow and not workflow tiles, that should sort us out. Okay, so that's that's what I wanted to show there. So are we still okay? Everybody still with us? You're all very quiet on the chat this morning. I don't know what's happening. You're all frozen in the cold light. It's -1 now. It was -2 this morning. It's now -1, but beautifully sunshiny. So yeah, where are we? That we're looking at the MTA YAML. Let's just have a look again to see the applications. Now, this is the state that we expect. Now, we don't know whether the actual deploy task of the content deploy task of the workflow tiles FLP module, which we sort of had a brief look at last week, whether that's actually worked or not. Let's have a look at the deploy. It failed, okay? It's failed, and it's probably failed because of this error that's occurring on the portal service backend. Instead of trying to have a look at it from the web perspective, from the web IDE perspective, let's now do the same sort of thing, but do it from the command line, okay? So now let's bring up the command line again. There we go. And we can use the MTA's CF command to say, well, what are the existing multi-target application collections in this space? And there is sample.workflow.tiles.mta.trial, which is a bit of a mouthful. In fact, why don't we change the name of it? qmacro.workflow, or WF, that'll do. Okay, so we can now say, when we'll build it again, mbt build. In fact, remember the name of the archive was the name of the actual project plus, as in the name of the thing that we've just changed here, plus the version. So let's up this version to 2 and just make sure that let's just see if the archive name changes. So if we now do mbt build, there we go. What's going on now? Let's see. Actually, let's go in here as well. CF MTAs. Let's have a look. And while that's building in the other window, we can hopefully say CF undeploy. In fact, let's do a CF apps first of all. Let's look at the apps. There we are. Workflow tiles app router and workflow tiles FLP, and look at the services as well. We can see all those services there: portal resources, workflow tiles, UAA workflow tiles, the workflow service instance which we're not using, the workflow tiles which we created by mistake, quote unquote, and the HTML5 repo runtime thing. So now we say CF undeploy sample.workflowtiles.mta.trial, which is why I want to change the name. It's a bit of a mouthful. And it will say, do you really want to do it? Yes, we can do a -f to sort of, suppress that check. And it will now undeploy that. But before it does that, it says, well, actually, there's an operation that's still ongoing for this particular MTA. Do you want to abort it? And why is an operation ongoing? Because the previous one failed. Now, let's actually say, no, we don't want to abort it. Okay, so we're canceling the deployment because now let's grab, where is it? Here we go. I'm looking for the dmol command. Can we see it? But there we go. Yes, here we go. Dmol, blah, blah, blah. There. So let's copy that. I didn't know what that dmol stands for. That stands for deploy multi something log. So let's try that and let's have a quick look. Let's open up another one here. Rename window logs. CF dmol I92 CB blah 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 blah. Okay, so this is the oh yes, the I think O in dmol stands for operation. So we've now pulled down the logs of that deployment so we can have a look what went wrong. Let's have a look in there. There it is. There's the directory it creates, and in that directory we've got the main log, the workflow tiles app router, and I'm guessing that the error that we're going to see, load of work process, by preview, that I'm guessing that the error, if it's like all the other errors I've seen this morning and in previous days. Thank you, Max. Download MTA operations log. Of course, because it's a CF command, so it's do this, download. It's not deploy, it's download MTA operations log. Thank you, Max. So there we go. Now I'm going to do a equals 502. Yes, there we go. It's the same error. Equals 502. This is the error. Deployed to portal service failed, got status 502. 502 bad gateway, registered endpoint failed to handle the request. Okay, so there's a portal service backend endpoint, the deploy phase of the workflow tiles FLP that's trying to deploy this common data model in there, that's failed. Or the backend has failed. The backend is responding with a 502. So that's the problem. Now we can sort of try again, and we'll do that as well. I think though today that it's quite broken. But we'll use the retries to sort of keep retrying, because sometimes it works. Okay, so let's have a quick look at that. There we go. There. What are we doing here? Oh, okay. So that's built now. Was that a build? Yes. I'm trying to do maybe two things at once. Too many things at once. So we've built that now, and the archive. That's right. The archive name is now qmacro.wf, the project name. 002, which is the version that we had in the MTAR. We changed the MTA YAML, and then MTAR. Okay, great. But it's also, of course, the same size as the other one. Okay, because we haven't changed anything there. So why don't we now go to Marius's suggestion and go into the MTA YAML and add the build parameters. So we want a new section here, build parameters, and it's going to be node, build parameters, sorry, it's going to be ignore, what we're doing, come on, ignore, there, like that, build parameters, ignore the node modules. Now that is something we can add not only to the workflow tiles app router, but also to the workflow tiles FLP. So now, if we build it, in fact, why don't we change the version? So we keep the old qmacro archive, yeah. Build MBT build, and so let's see what happens. And that was a lot quicker because, of course, it's not engaging with, let's use that phrase, it's not engaging with any of the NPM module definitions and in the package dependencies. Crap formatting, dmol is just the alias. I'm not sure what you mean there, Max, but yeah, I mean, it is the alias, isn't it? I mean, cf dmol, let's see what it says. Download MTA op logs. There we go. We're going to find out that way as well. Max, thank you very much. Okay, so now let's have a look in the MTA archives directory. Now we've got 12.5 meg on version 2, but now we've had the ignore node modules build parameters. We've got 24.7 kilobytes, nothing could fit on a floppy. So that's a lot more exciting, isn't it? So now let's deploy that and let's use the retries to see if it works. Okay, and if it doesn't work, we can switch to my other accounts and we can carry on like that. While the folks in the team, the back end, fix that 502 error. Now, what are we doing? Oh yes, so we can say cf deploy MTA archives qmacro workflow 3, and now we can say here, oh no, hold on, cf MTAs. We want to do undeploy that first, don't we? Cf on, there we go. Yes, that one. Yes, really, and also yes, abort that. So what's going to happen now? Let's just move that down there. Where are we now? Yeah, let's move that down there to see that these things should disappear. The undeploy will remove the modules, and of course remove the binding of these modules. Oh, it stopped. Remove the binding of these modules to the services. There we go. They've gone during the undeployment. Where's the service instances? So now we should see. I think that's also stopped. Oh, it started updating. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. We could, yeah, let's delete all these. let's at least delete the workflow tiles service, because that's the one we sort of created by accident. Okay, that'll do. Yeah, so let's move that back down there. And now we'll say cf deploy mta archives q macro version 3. And then we'll say retries equals 10. Bash it in, get in. I'm not sure whether that'll work or not, but it's sometimes useful. So let's see. Fits on a what? A floppy? The elderly amongst us might remember. Sasha, interestingly enough, I was listening to a podcast yesterday about floppies. What was the podcast? I'll find it and post it. It was an awesome thing. But yeah, I even remember. I suppose this is a way to date ourselves. If you do remember floppies, what was the first size of floppy in terms of, not capacity but size that you remember using? I remember using the 8-inch floppies, and then of course the next size down was the 5 1/4-inch floppy. And in this podcast, while we're waiting for this, might as well talk about this. In this podcast, I was learning that, and I think I sort of vaguely knew this anyway. These floppies were designed, the original reason for creating this floppy style mechanism or media type was to load the bootstrap code on a mainframe. You didn't need a lot of space, so that's why a floppy was, ended up being the ideal solution. They did look at audio cassettes. They did look at reel-to-reel tape. I think they looked at some sort of physical medium like a punch card or a paper tape or something. But they ended up I can't remember the reason. They ended up with this new concept of a floppy magnetic disk. And I can't remember the original capacity, but then they moved to a 5 1/4 for whatever reason. And the reason why it was a 5 1/4, most people think it's because they wanted to fit it wasn't to do with capacity, but they wanted to fit the actual physical floppy reader device into standard size slots, and so the largest size of floppy disk you could have in these standard in a new device in this standard size was 5 1/4-inch. So I remember 8-inch. Yes, Gregor, do you remember 8-inch as well? There were even 3-inch. Yes, exactly. So there was a 5 1/4. Then there was 3 1/2, which was quite a common one, the 3 1/2-inch, with that sort of silver sprung-loaded sort of protector thing. But then there's also, as Gregor pointed out, the Schneider CPC 464. I mean, in the UK, the company was Amstrad who created them. And yeah, there were 3-inch, slightly thicker, but 3-inch floppy disks. Yeah, and then floppy disks sort of disappeared. Where else were 3-inch disks used? I can't remember. But 5 1/4, 3 1/2. I used to have loads of those. I started with cassettes as well. In fact, on your Commodore VIC-20, I started on an Acorn Atom. I mean, in fact, I started computing on a PDP-11 at school. That's why I like the terminal so much, because that was my first love. In fact, it was a paper-based terminal, a printer with a keyboard. Anyway, and then I had an Acorn Atom, and I didn't even have a cassette recorder first of all, so I had nothing. So when I turned the machine off, I lost everything. Okay, anyway, where are we? Okay, we're about to see whether the deployment is going to fail or not. Let's just analyze these logs here. We've got the repo runtime, it exists. The portal service workflow, it exists. The UAA workflow exists. Of course it exists because we didn't delete them. That's cool. So then it goes through processing each of those services and then sets up, that's the UAA workflow tile service from that excess security file that we've specified or we've got in our project, in the project MTAR. Of course, it came from the project originally. And remember, in the MTA YAML, we've got a pointer to where that is, /excesssecurity.json. Similar sort of thing there for the workflow tiles app router and so on. And so now we're getting into the workflow size FLP. So the first thing that happens is that the application is created, okay? Then it's uploaded, then it's scaled to one instance, then it's staged, and then it starts either, it starts the application, or if there's an application has a task defined within it, in this case it does, it runs. Oh my goodness, it's worked. Maybe the team has been working furiously in the background, but it looks like it's worked. Look, application staged, executing task deploy on application workflow task FLP, skipping deletion, process finished. So let's now flip down to see. So this has been updating, of course, with this little update thing. This has been updating. Chat, regarding your MTA, have you enabled parallel processing? No, I haven't, Max, not explicitly, no. Maybe that's something you want to share. How would we enable parallel processing? But although I think that one of the issues with the back-end service that was failing consistently this morning before the live stream, that was, in my understanding from looking at the conversation I'm having with the team in the background, it was due to some parallel processing at the DBN. So maybe that's not a good idea. We turn on parallel processing at this one, but let's find out next time what parallel processing, or in fact, you're doing a live stream. Is it this time on Thursday next week? Where are we now? Yes, it's Thursday next week. Max has got a live stream on Thursday next week. So make sure you set a reminder for that as well. Probably spoilering. I like that word. No für die Deutschsprecher. Only for the German speakers. I'm losing a bit of what's going on in the conversation, but that's good. That's good. Have a conversation. That's awesome. So we've got, maybe a bit delirious with this coffee. I've got now the repo in service instance. I've got the UAA service instance. I've got the portal service instance. And I've also got the workflow service instance that we created manually. And now that's the one, because we changed it in the MTA YAML, that's the one that's being used for this MTA deployment, which is what we want. We can see previously the workflow service was sitting there unused and unloved and unbound to, but now we've got these two referencing applications. Let's go to the applications and have a look at the status. And that, again, as we say, is a status we're expecting. Okay, the workflow tiles FLP. I'm sure we remember deploying a CAP-based application to Cloud Foundry, and we always had an HDI-based application that was deployed, started, and then stopped. And that was that deploy, the deploy of the data from the CSV files into the actual HDI container. Okay, and then it stopped. Marius has got a blog post somewhere about tasks in his Cloud Foundry fun. Marius Obert Cloud Foundry fun task Cloud. I've already got Cloud Foundry task. There we go. How to use Cloud Foundry tasks. Look at that. Copy, put that in there. Read that blog post and like it if you haven't liked it already. There we go. Oh, I've got a message. Anyway, right. So we've got those two things there. So let's now see, follow the same process. Let's now see if we can get to the portal content. So we go into cp.portal/site, and I think I can feel the UI5 being loaded, being bootstrapped, and there we go. There's an error. Why is there an error? It's probably because. Well, let's find out. Why guess, right? Why guess? Service task processing failed. Contact your system administrator. Now, if we have a look here, and I'll open up the Chrome DevTools, trusty Chrome DevTools. We should see, because this, this thing here where it says error, normally it would just say 1, right? Oh, sorry, 0. And this is polled. This information is polled. Where is it polled from? It's polled from an OData service that has, this task processing OData service, if I remember correctly. Now, I'm not sure how often it's polled. So why don't we just oh, there we go. Woohoo! No sooner said than done. There we go. So we're getting here. some an amazing number of requests that are failing, right? This is going to, is that big enough for everybody? Let me just make that a little bit bigger. This is going to part of the workflow service. Well, it's actually the workflow runtime, the inbox support mechanism, which supplies information about any tasks, any workflow user tasks that are, ready for me in my inbox. Of course, the inbox will say 1, 2, 3, 10, 0. However, what is the, I have no idea what's going on here, but what I'm guessing the error. So here we go. Yeah, go and get the tasks, the list of tasks where the status is ready or reserved or in progress or executed. Okay, fine. However, what was the response? Well, in fact, we can see the response if we have a look here. Cancel 403. Okay, so we're getting a 403, which of course means forbidden, and that's because I'm just guessing, because the instance of the workflow service that remember, I'm creating these instances and deleting them on the fly, like there's no tomorrow, right? But I think that my user here, let's go back to the trial sub account, my trial sub account. If I have a look at the role collections, yes. Now, I'm pretty sure in a previous live stream, we set up the workflow role collection to contain the workflow roles. And there's 5 workflow roles, like an administrator role and a workflow task recipient role or whatever it's called, and another 3, can't remember. But look, this workflow role collection has no roles in it. That workflow role collection is assigned to me. If I look in the trust configuration and go into the SAP ID service, there we go. We've got workflow. The workflow role collection is assigned to me. By the way, I've sort of deliberately, not yet mentioned the Business Application Studio, which is the awesome new IDE that is now available in trial. But let's wait for Ronnie to come on board for next time because he's super excited about it. But let's continue to work in the Web IDE for now, because that's where this sample application still is for us. And really, we're working on the command line anyway, right? So that's the problem, I think, right? And I'm not. This is not pre-made up. This excitement. And the problem is that the workflow. How do we get out of here? The workflow role collection is empty because previously it did have things in, but they were referring to a specific connection to the specific workflow instance that we'd created. So now I think if I go in there, we can now add roles. So we'll add role workflow B10150 workflow admin. Add that role here. Let's go there again. What else have we got? Workflow. I can't remember which ones we need. Context viewer. Yes, I think. In fact, this is the work in progress on this Cloud Foundry branch, CF branch of the workflow code jam thing that I'm creating right now. Where are we? Workflow tools, workflow tools. It's here, right? We've got, there we go. Administrator, developer, initiator, participant. Oh, we didn't need the other thing, but anyway. Administrator, content viewer. Let's have that anyway. Why not? I'm feeling generous. Administrator, developer, workflow developer. We don't need that right now, but we'll have it. Developer, and what was the other one? Initiator, participant, and viewer. Initiator. Sorry, go there. Initiator, participant. Now, maybe we should have just given it viewer and then see if that solved the problem there. Actually, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's just keep adding them until we don't get the 403, because the workflow role collection is already assigned to me, and I've already logged on with that collection attached to me. So let's have a look there. Developer, initiator. I'm not going to try and initiate a workflow yet. Let's just see workflow. What was it? Workflow participant and viewer. Yeah, this is an experiment. Add role. Come on, add role. Workflow viewer. I mean, we could look at the documentation, but that's like too obvious. So now we've got workflow viewer, and I'm assuming right now. Yes, Gregor, I'm assuming you're referring to the application studio. Yes, you can. In fact, if you go to your, there we go there, the trial cockpit here, and look in, come on, did I click that correctly? And look in subscriptions, in a similar sort of way to the Neo style, Business Application Studio, and I've subscribed. There we go. One thing to note, however, that in create dev space, there we go. I've deliberately not created any yet. One thing to note is that there are a number of extensions. When you create a space, a dev space, you specify the sort of combination of tools that you might want, a little bit like the Web IDE extensions. So you always get the basic tools and the basic SAP version of Eclipse Theia, which is, of course, what Business Application Studio is based upon. And then you can choose to have the MTA, the multi-target application tools, as an SAP extension. You can also bring in the UI5 layout tools, but what you cannot yet, and I emphasize the word yet with an underline, there are no workflow related tools. They are coming. I understand that from the product owners and the team and everything. The wonderful people are working on this. But for now, you know, if you want to do what we're doing on this live stream, of course you can still use the Web IDE for that. So that's something to point out there. And then eventually, the additional SAP extension list will contain the tools relating to workflow, like the workflow editor, the graphical editor, and things like that. Okay. But for now, we'll continue, therefore, to use the Web IDE. So there we go. Let's close that down. Oh my goodness, it's 8:57. Let's just see. Where are we? I'm going to refresh that. See, I don't know whether I need to re-authenticate, whether it's going to, you know, this is crazy error. Oh, let's just add them all. We haven't got time to mess about, DJ. Come on, sort your life out. Add them all. It would have been nice if we had a bit more time. Workflow admin. But this is real life, I suppose. I have no idea what I'm doing. Workflow developer. I guess we don't need developer to see if we can see the output of the task collection. Workflow admin. What was it? Workflow initiator. Let's add them all and just be done with it. Workflow initiator and workflow. What did I say? Participant. I've already got that, have I? No, right, okay, fine. We've added those roles. Let's go here and we'll really find out whether we need to log on or log off again. I thought it worked in the same sort of way as, okay, well, we're just going to log off. Okay, let's log off then. Sign out. Goodbye. I'm not sure, is that the 72 font? I'm not sure. Oops. Where's the font? Arial. Yes, that's why I didn't like it. It's Arial. No, we should. See, I don't like that. Anyway, right. Let's log in. Where's the network? There we go. Network. Where's the network? There we are. We could have done those one by one. I didn't realize you had to log out. No, maybe I did. I don't know. What do I know? Anyway, there we go. So we've now got the tiles, which is, you know, great to end on, I suppose. It's 8:59. I can't believe the time's gone. The app router might still be Casio row. Yes, exactly. Thanks, Max. Yeah, a new logger might be necessary for that reason, not for the other reason. What I was thinking of course, is the authorization concept in SAP and so on, and R3 architecture. But anyway, that's it. It's 9 o'clock. The sun is shining. I'm going to have to put the blinds down in a minute. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you being online with me and everything, and discovering all this stuff with me. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you when I see you. Bye. See you next week.